In just 3 days, from July 1st to 3rd, 1863, the Battle of Gettysburg produced an estimated 51,000 casualties, men who were killed, wounded, captured, or went missing. The sheer scale of this loss is staggering, even by the standards of war. Imagine the chaos and heartbreak as thousands fell in fields, orchards, and streets, their lives forever altered or ended in the span of a single summer week. The town of Gettysburg itself was a quiet community of only about 2,400 residents before the battle. Overnight, it was transformed into a vast field hospital and graveyard, its homes and churches overflowing with the wounded and dying. For the townspeople, the aftermath was a nightmare, streets lined with makeshift beds, families searching for loved ones, and the constant sound of suffering. This was the costliest battle ever fought on American soil, a brutal testament to the Civil War's ferocity and the unimaginable price paid by both sides. The landscape was scarred by cannon fire, littered with broken weapons and marked by hastily dug graves. Each casualty was a story, fathers, sons, and brothers whose lives changed forever. Behind every number was a family waiting for news, a community left to mourn, and a future forever altered by loss. The battle itself was almost accidental, as the converging roads of Gettysburg brought two massive armies face to face. Neither side had planned to fight here, but fate and geography made it inevitable. For the soldiers, Gettysburg was just another stop on a long and grueling campaign, until it became the stage for a conflict that would define American history. Many were young, far from home, and unprepared for the horrors they would witness. The outcome halted the Confederate momentum, shifting the strategic initiative to the Union. The hopes of the South for a decisive victory on Northern soil were dashed, and the tide of the war began to turn. On the ground, men fought not just for survival, but for their comrades, their homes, and their deeply held beliefs. The struggle was personal and immediate, with acts of courage and sacrifice witnessed on both sides. Places like Cemetery Hill and Devil's Den became hallowed ground, forever etched into the nation's memory. These landmarks stand as silent witnesses to the bravery and tragedy that unfolded there. Gettysburg was a turning point, a solemn reminder of the price of unity. The fields where so many fell are now places of reflection, where the cost of division is never forgotten. Its legacy endures as a symbol of the profound cost of civil war, and as a call to remember the sacrifices made for the nation's future. By the summer of 1863, the Civil War's outcome was uncertain. General Lee, confident after victories in Virginia, decided to invade Pennsylvania, hoping to relieve his home state and supply his army from the North's rich farmlands. A victory on Union soil could demoralize the North and possibly win foreign support for the Confederacy. Meanwhile, the Union Army of the Potomac was in turmoil, with General Meade taking command just days before the battle. Both armies moved through Maryland into Pennsylvania, watched anxiously by civilians. Union soldiers were determined to defend their homes. Confederates were energized by the prospect of victory in the North. No one knew where the clash would come, but all sensed its importance. The fate of the nation hung in the balance. The stage was set for an epic confrontation. At Gettysburg, the Union's Army of the Potomac, nearly 94,000 strong, faced off against General Robert E. Lee's 75,000 seasoned Confederates. The fields and hills of rural Pennsylvania became the stage for one of the most pivotal confrontations in American history, as two massive armies prepared to collide in a struggle that would determine the fate of the nation. The Union soldiers, fighting on familiar ground, were driven by a fierce determination to halt Lee's advance into the North. Many of them were defending not just their country, but their very homes and families, knowing that defeat could mean devastation for their communities. Lee's men, hardened by years of war and emboldened by a string of victories, believed that a decisive win on Union soil could force the North to seek peace. Their confidence was high, and they marched with the hope that this battle might finally bring an end to the long and bloody conflict. General George Meade, recently appointed to command the Union Army, was a methodical and cautious leader. Though not known for fiery speeches or dramatic gestures, Meade's steady hand and careful planning would be put to the ultimate test in the days ahead. With little time to prepare, Meade had to quickly assess the unfolding situation, coordinate his scattered forces, and make decisions that would not only affect the outcome of the battle, but also the future of the entire nation. On the other side, General Lee, revered by his men and respected by his enemies, was bold and decisive. Yet at Gettysburg, he faced a critical disadvantage. The absence of his trusted cavalry commander, Jeb Stuart, left him without vital intelligence about Union movements, forcing him to make risky decisions in the fog of war. The Confederate Army, deep in unfamiliar and hostile territory, relied on Lee's audacity and their own fighting spirit. Every step forward was a gamble, as they pushed further from their supply lines and deeper into the heart of the Union. Both armies were led by men under immense pressure, each commander acutely aware that the coming battle could decide the fate of the country. The weight of history pressed down on every decision, every order, every moment of hesitation or resolve. The Union's strong defensive positions, combined with Lee's lack of reliable intelligence, would prove to be crucial factors as the battle unfolded. Every advantage and every mistake would be magnified in the chaos to come. The stage was set for a clash of titans, two armies, two commanders, and the destiny of a nation hanging in the balance. The hopes and fears of millions rested on the outcome of the coming days. For 3 relentless days, soldiers and commanders alike would be tested as never before, their courage and resolve pushed to the absolute limit. The outcome of Gettysburg would echo through history, shaping the course of the war and the future of the United States for generations to come. Gettysburg was more than just a battle. It was a crucible for the nation's soul, a turning point that would define what America would become. The decisions made here, by generals and by ordinary soldiers alike, would shape America's future and leave a legacy that endures to this day. The battle began unexpectedly on July 1, 1863, as Confederate troops searching for desperately needed supplies stumbled into Union cavalry under General John Buford just west of Gettysburg. What started as a chance encounter quickly escalated into a fierce and pivotal engagement, drawing in more and more soldiers from both sides as the morning wore on. Buford, understanding the critical importance of the high ground south of town, made a bold decision. He ordered his men to hold their ground at all costs, buying precious time for Union infantry to arrive and reinforce their position. The rolling hills and ridges around Gettysburg would soon become the focus of desperate fighting. General John Reynolds, leading the Union reinforcements, arrived swiftly and threw his men into the fray. Tragically, Reynolds was killed early in the fighting, a devastating loss for the Union cause, as he was one of their most respected commanders. Throughout the day, the battle grew in scale and intensity. Both Union and Confederate commanders rushed more troops onto the field, determined to seize the advantage. The fields and streets of Gettysburg echoed with the thunder of artillery and the crack of rifle fire. As the afternoon wore on, the Union lines began to buckle under the relentless Confederate assault. Forced to give ground, Union soldiers retreated through the narrow streets of Gettysburg, suffering heavy casualties and leaving behind many wounded, but the retreat was not a chaotic rout. Union forces managed to regroup on Cemetery Hill and Culp's Hill, forming a strong defensive line as dusk approached. Exhausted but resolute, they prepared to make a stand. Meanwhile, the Confederate troops, worn out from hours of fighting and marching, failed to press their advantage before nightfall. Fatigue and confusion slowed their advance and precious time slipped away. This pause in the fighting allowed Union soldiers to dig in and fortify the high ground, transforming hills and ridges into formidable defensive positions as darkness fell over the battlefield. The Confederate decision not to attack immediately became a crucial turning point. Hesitation and uncertainty among their commanders gave the Union the opportunity to strengthen their hold on the high ground. By nightfall, the Union Army held the superior position, their lines anchored on the high ground and braced for what was to come. As dawn broke over Gettysburg, both armies prepared for another day of brutal conflict. The fate of the battle, and perhaps the entire war, now hung in the balance. On July 2nd, Lee aimed to break the Union flanks, launching fierce attacks on both ends of the line. The fighting on the Union left at places like Devil's Den and the Wheatfield was savage and chaotic. Control of these areas changed hands repeatedly in brutal close combat. At Little Round Top, Union Colonel Joshua Chamberlain and the 20th Maine held the extreme left. Running low on ammunition, Chamberlain ordered a daring bayonet charge, driving the Confederates back and securing the hill. This act of courage became legendary, symbolizing the desperate bravery of both sides. The Union line held, despite relentless Confederate assaults. The day's fighting left thousands dead and wounded, but the Union position remained intact. The battle's outcome still hung in the balance. After 2 days of carnage, Lee gambled on a massive frontal assault against the Union center, Pickett's charge. Over 12,000 Confederate soldiers advanced across open ground, following a thunderous artillery barrage. The Union, well prepared, unleashed devastating fire as the Confederates marched forward. Despite heavy losses, a small group briefly breached the Union line at the angle, the high water mark of the Confederacy. But the breakthrough collapsed under Union reinforcements. The charge ended in disaster, with thousands killed, wounded, or captured. Lee's gamble had failed. The Confederate army was shattered, its spirit broken. The Union line held firm. Pickett's charge became a symbol of both valor and futility. The battle's outcome was now clear. Gettysburg had turned the tide. The failure of Pickett's charge ended the battle. Lee's army retreated in defeat, leaving behind a landscape of horror. Thousands dead, wounded, and dying. Gettysburg's residents faced the overwhelming task of caring for the wounded and burying the dead. The aftermath was a humanitarian crisis unlike anything America had seen. Strategically, Gettysburg and the fall of Vicksburg marked the war's turning point. Lee's army lost its aura of invincibility and would never fully recover. The Confederacy was now on the defensive. For survivors, the trauma of Gettysburg would last a lifetime. The ground was consecrated by sacrifice, becoming sacred to the nation. The process of healing had only just begun. Gettysburg's legacy was just starting to take shape. Months later, a national cemetery was established at Gettysburg to honor the Union dead. At the dedication, President Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, just 272 words but transformative. Lincoln reframed the war as a test of the nation's founding ideals, liberty and equality. He called for a new birth of freedom, linking the Union cause to the end of slavery. The speech gave meaning to the sacrifice, turning Gettysburg into a symbol of national resolve. Lincoln's words offered hope and unity to a grieving nation. The Gettysburg Address endures as one of history's most powerful calls to democracy. It gave purpose to the loss and a vision for the future. Gettysburg didn't end the Civil War, but it changed its course forever. The Confederacy would never again threaten the North on such a scale. The battle marked the high water mark of Southern hopes. After Gettysburg, the war became a grinding struggle the North was destined to win. Today, the battlefield is preserved as a national park, dotted with monuments to the fallen. Gettysburg stands as a testament to courage, sacrifice, and the nation's struggle for unity. The Union victory and Lincoln's words helped ensure America would remain one nation. Gettysburg's story is ultimately a human one, of leaders, soldiers, and a nation tested. Its lessons remind us of the cost of division and the value of democracy. The echoes of those 3 days still shape America's identity and ideals.